Good morning and welcome to the Morning Spotlight Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Ham, coming to you as always from the Spotlight Studios here in Morristown, New Jersey. My guests today are the founders of Adventurous Real Estate Investors. Their adventure began at a TEDx event. The theme was Reset, and it changed their lives. They took the event to heart and used that theme as a launching point to regain control, secure financial freedom, give back to the community, and discover their why. They want to share this journey with others by helping people check off their bucket list items and achieve the greatest ROI, return on impact. They are Suzy Sevier and Michael Barnhart. Guys, welcome to the show.
Woo! Excited to be here, Mike. Appreciate it.
Yeah, me too. I'm excited to have you. This is great. We did our first initial call, which normally I don't do a ton of initial calls, like prelim calls, but I just figured it'd be good to kind of, put a face on there, get to know you a little bit. And we did it on Zoom. And I wish we just recorded the episode then because it was awesome. We were vibing. I'm really excited. The energy level was high. That intro that we just read was one of the best intros we've ever read ever that you guys did, which people have already listened to if they're listening to the beginning part of the show. So I'm excited.
Yeah, no, it's going to be a fabulous time. We're going to just do round two.
Round two. Yeah, round two of basically our initial call. So everybody's going to get to know us as we kind of progress. So where are you guys calling in from today?
So we are located in Cambridge, England, which is about an hour north of London by train.
Awesome. And how long have you been there and why are you there?
Yeah, so we have been here almost 2 years now, which is crazy because it's gone by so fast. And we are here because the lovely Michael Barnhart is active duty Air Force. And so he is getting his PhD over here at the University of Cambridge. And while I work as a program manager for a biotech company that is local.
Very cool. Very cool. So Air Force background, Michael. You got the clean cut, ready to go look. I also have a bald head, but I cover it and I have the beard, which I don't think that this necessarily flies. Pun. Air Force. But what got you into the Air Force and going down that road?
Yeah, so a couple of things, Mike. And so first of all, my hairstyle is not by choice. It's by force.
Same,
unfortunately.
Same.
But at one point I just had to make a decision. Shave it all off or look like a horseshoe bald or whatever it's called. So anyways, knocked it out. So but you're asking about the Air Force, how I got started in the Air Force. We're going to go back. Like I was working full time and going to school full time from my after high school. And I was actually delivering pizzas for Papa John's until like 6 a.m. and then literally going to class like 8 a.m. So I was like burning at both ends. I was getting a couple hours of sleep here and there, trying to pick up as many shifts as I can to pay for college, to live there and things like that. So I, after a couple of semesters of this, I was like, man, this is not what I want to be doing for the next 4 years, So I looked into some alternative options and I decided, hey, I'm gonna try to go into the Air Force. So I know they pay for college and stuff like that. Obviously, the other cause was that I want to serve my country, of course, but just a benefit to serving the country is that they end up paying for school. And so I ended up going to Air Force, enlisted first, and then I did a really good job, enlisted, graduated, honors and things like that out of basic training, which I didn't know you can get honors out of basic training, but I figured it out, which is pretty cool. And so a bunch of my commanders kind of noticed that, how I was doing well at being enlisted. And they're like, hey, maybe you should try out going to the Air Force Academy. I was like, I have no idea what the Air Force Academy is. And they're like, well, here, they gave me a little pamphlet, checked it out, applied, ended up getting in. And then I got commissioned. And now we're here 16 years later.
Do you fly planes or do you have another job in the Air Force?
So I have a very strange career in the Air Force. So I don't fly planes. I'm working on my private pilot's license outside the Air Force, but for the Air Force, I was a biologist for the Air Force initially. Well, first when I was enlisted, I worked on planes, worked on C-17s as a mechanic. But after getting commissioned, I was a biologist for the Air Force. And they're like, hey, you know what? We don't need that career field anymore. We're going to actually make you a program manager. I was like, cool. I have no idea what that means. What's a program manager? And they're like, oh, just acquisitions. I was like, yeah, still have no idea what you're talking about. And so they threw me in this career field. And after they paid for a master's degree, so I got a free master's out of it. And they stuck me in this career field where I was then a program manager, basically like leading projects and things like that. which actually paid off dividends because now I have this professional program management, training, and now I can use that training and apply that to real estate investing. And that's been very, very helpful, like being lead sponsors on deals and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's very cool. Very cool. I also got a free MBA at some point in my life, but I did not have to go through the military to get it. And then also it says, I was reading through the bio on the website that you spent 380 days in Afghanistan in combat.
I did. Yeah.
Yeah.
I knew I wanted to go back to the Air Force Academy to eventually teach. And I knew I wanted to go to get deployed. I actually volunteered for that deployment. I wanted to get deployed in order to be able to bring an experience back to the cadets at the Air Force Academy and share that experience with them, being downrange and deployed. And so it was only supposed to be like a 6-month deployment. I actually ended up loving it so much. I stayed for another 6 months. It was my leadership that I really loved. And so I stayed there and kind of helped. And there was a lot of people who were coming over who didn't really get an opportunity, who didn't want to be there because they had family back at home and stuff like that. And I didn't have a lot going on back at home. So I was like, you know what? I was to bite the bullet, not literally, but bite the bullet and stay in Afghanistan for another 6 months. Which ended up turning into, a couple more months after that, and it ended up 382 days, I think, was the final day count. So.
Gotcha. Well, we mentioned before we even started recording. So this episode is posting July 6th, which is coming off the heels of July 4th. Obviously. So that just seems like it works out perfect. I mean, that was I put a lot of thought and time and effort into making that connection, obviously, because I spend a lot of time planning out everything that happens on this show. But thank you for your service. I think that's fantastic. But Suzy, I was reading through your bio, and I know you mentioned kind of like as we were progressing through these conversations that we've had, that you're a program manager and a supply chain coordinator. But on this bio, it says for a global multi-billion-dollar biotechnology company. You could be Tony Stark for all I know. So like, how did you even get involved in something like that? That sounds like very high level type stuff, right?
Yeah. That's super cool. So how I got into it, I applied for the job.
Fantastic answer.
Right. It really was like a combination of like what was offered here, but also like what they offer. So like for the company itself, their whole thing is like unlocking the human genome. And so they're really focused on like the human life and what they can do to preserve it and help it and just like continue it. Right. And so like with supply chain, what I loved was like the very beginning to the very end of whatever spectrum, right? I mean, it can be a raw material, but also like looking at it within earth, within nature, and then now being able to see it, like how they do it with their DNA sequencing machines. That was the amazing part, right? It's like, wow. So I'm not just a program manager, like for whatever project. It's like, how am I contributing, like wide lens, I guess, to be able to contribute to like also unlocking, the human genome and helping all these people with these rare genetic diseases. And so that all tied in is really what made me super interested, because for my undergrad, actually, I was in anthropology and communication studies, and I chose those two because I just genuinely loved learning about different cultures and humans and all of the above. So being able to go into a space, yes, although it's science and it wasn't exactly like what I had envisioned myself in, it ended up working out because I was like, oh no, this is another way where I can help impact people. And that's really what it's all about for me.
I think that's awesome. Because I mean, that just takes like a job and makes it even more, it makes it just mean more to you. And that's what I think is pretty cool about you guys. Is like you have your normal jobs, and they mean more than just maybe like some Joe Schmo working a 9 to 5. Like they have a little bit more of a connection for you. But then we're also going to get here in a little bit into just the real estate side of it, which is kind of taking the whole life path to a next level type thing. How did you guys meet? Can we do that story real quick? Because I mean, I don't know if you ever really talk about that on podcast, but I want to know. So
So we met at the TED Talk.
So not only did it change your life on like the reset thing, it literally changed your life.
Yeah.
Literally, yeah. Reset
Awesome. Let's hear it. Because I want to talk about the TED Talk thing too. So let's do like Michael and Suzy meet, and then we'll do the reset thing after that.
Okay. Michael's going to do the Michael and Suzy meet, and I'll do the reset part. So you
No
go.
pressure, dude. No pressure.
Yeah. Man. Okay. So
I like how he tells the story.
So it was just a buddy and me who lived in Denver, and he had gone through like a really rough relationship, and I was going through one as well. Anyways, we decided we wanted to go to this TED Talk. It was called Reset, right? And so like, oh, maybe this will help us like grow and heal and things like that. So ended up going there. It's like an all-day event, and then there was an after party. And the after party was actually like this concert. Well, there's a couple of people that were kind of there, but one of them was like a beatboxer, which was really cool. And so that was like the main event. So like this beatboxer was using beatboxing to help children with speech impediments, right? To make certain noises with their mouth. And so he was using beatboxing as a therapy. So it was like resetting your thinking about like beatboxing. Like you hear beatboxing, what do you think, right? Like, so now reset that thinking and okay, actually it's for use for speech therapy as well.
Wow.
So that was a cool thing. But he was putting on a concert afterwards, and it was at the Contemporary Art Museum in Denver. And Suzy was there with her friend, and I actually walked up to, I told my buddy, I was like, hey, let's go talk to these girls. After we had a couple beers, of course, and then we walked
Obviously.
up and
liquid courage.
Liquid courage, exactly.
Yeah.
There you go. We walked up to them, and and I actually started talking to the other girl first, and I wasn't too interested at all. And anyways, Suzy was talking, and I was kind of listening to Suzy and Eric's conversation, and she started talking about a book or something like that. And I looked at her and I was like, wait, what book are you reading? And that was the first thing I ever said to Suzy was, what book are you reading? So,
Wow.
But so I was super embarrassed because I was reading a book. It's called The Mind Gut Connection. And I was like, nobody's going to want to know that I'm reading about gut biomes, But I say it, and Michael's like, I'm a biology professor. I was like, winner. I was like, oh my gosh, he actually understands what I'm reading about. That's neat.
Right.
And so, from there, now we're here.
How long ago was that?
That was
almost 3 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha. All right. So 3 years ago, and here we are in England, doing an episode on the Morning Spotlight podcast. So we've come a long way. It's like the butterfly effect. Isn't that weird? Like, what book are you reading? Now we're talking. Like, isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Like, you think about the universe in that way? Or is that just me?
Think about it that way.
It's crazy. I mean, my mind is blown right now. So the reset thing, when I was reading the bio that you guys had sent over to me, and obviously in the ample research that I've done prior to this episode, one of the things that I thought that the reset thing was going to be more real estate focused. I thought that you guys maybe went together to this TED Talk, and then so that wasn't the case.
No. So
I blew it. I totally blew it.
No, it's okay. No, you're asking good questions now. So
thank you.
Like nothing about real estate, but what we took from it was like how we were thinking about everything, right? So, I mean, it talked about tattoos. There was discussions on religion, on solitary confinement, on robots, on beatboxing. Like there was a broad spectrum. And what we got from it was like, okay, when we're presented with a situation, we're going to have to ask the questions both ways, like why or why not. And that's what led us to, being able to make the decision on real estate. So when COVID happened, like at the very beginning, March of last year, we didn't know how long the first lockdown would be over here. People were just told to go home. And with that, Michael and I started a mini book club with each other because we don't have a TV and we were only allowed to leave our house once a day to work out or go to the grocery store. And just one of those books was Multiple Streams of Income. And Michael was like, okay, skip all the other chapters, just go to this one. And he's like, we have to do this. And I just said, okay. But like that whole reset was a part of that, right? Like, okay, we're not going to have limiting beliefs. We are going to try something new because we have this opportunity right now where everything is virtual. So we're not going to say no when everything else is telling us yes. And so that's how we bring it all together. Like when we go into situations, it's like, okay, should we just have confidence in ourselves right now or think about this situation differently? You know, where some people could have seen a challenge, we are always trying to look for the opportunity.
Right. No, I think that's great. And just reframing the whole thing is really important. So really, you've only been in real estate investing since the beginning of 2020. That's what I'm gathering from that story, correct? And
Exactly.
you invest in properties back here in the United States. Also correct.
Correct.
What types of properties are you investing in?
So we're looking at larger multifamily apartments. So like around 100 units or more. So we have 88 units, and by the time this comes out, well, we have close on 100 units. So now we have 188, and then we also have an 8-unit that we're converting into a short-term rental as well. So we're excited about that. That's a JV type of situation. So
Awesome. Well, I think that's really cool, and I do think that it's very interesting because you mentioned how resetting your thinking on different things. I mean, a lot of people had to do that, and a lot of, like you said, looking at 2020 as either a challenge or as an opportunity, or whatever you want to call it. I think that the people went two ways in 2020. I think that I like to consider myself as someone that kind of went the opportunity route and started my show and started doing things virtually and just meeting more people in the real estate world and beyond to try to help boost my title insurance sales. And then here you guys are in England investing in properties back in the United States. Do you think that if 2020 had never happened, would real estate investing be something that you would have gotten yourself into?
No. Michael would be rowing for Cambridge right now. That's what we would be doing.
Yeah.
Which would still have been super cool, but now we're very thankful, like just not thankful for COVID, but thankful for the space that we have to be able to be into real estate investing now.
The time that we had to read those books that really changed our lives.
Yeah, right. And that's really important. So then from the virtual standpoint, because you're investing, you said you have 88 units here in the United States. They're mostly, I think you mentioned in the last call that they're mostly in Colorado, right? Is that right?
Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Yeah. See, a lot of research this guy did.
It's a short drive.
Yeah, right. No, it's right there. So what is it like? Because I mean, I have people here in the United States that I've had on the show that invest in multifamily and all that kind of stuff. And some of them go and visit their properties. Some of them know what they look like. They can see them, touch them, smell them if they smell. I mean, maybe they don't smell good, so maybe that's but
or like a scratch and sniff.
Like a scratch and sniff building. That could be a thing.
Lead paint.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Paint. So what is it like to start a real estate career? You have to be totally virtual because you're stuck in England. And you know people here, obviously, because you're from the United States, but like, what is it like developing those relationships with people here just virtually?
Yeah. So it's,
it
was definitely a challenge. I mean, but COVID, the silver lining to COVID definitely helped that. And so because everything went online, before COVID, if you were to say, hey, let's hop on a Zoom call, everybody would be like, I heard of Zoom, but I have no idea how to use it. Right. But now Zoom the COVID forced everybody on a Zoom or some kind of virtual meetup platform. Right. And so when you were like, hey, let's hop on a Zoom, everybody's like, oh yeah, absolutely. Let's do it. Even now, like I'd rather talk to people via Zoom than over the phone.
Oh yeah. Me too. Yeah. Same.
Because I like to see, you have a better connection,
right.
Like when you're looking at somebody and seeing their reactions and things. So that's helped a lot. Another thing too, investing virtually or, because you had mentioned that we can't necessarily drive down the street and see our property, scratch and sniff it. So what we're doing is, what it's forced us to do is really set up the systems and processes and have those in place and really tweak those as we go and kind of perfect those. And so our end goal is to retire. Like when I can retire from the military in around 7 years, like our end goal is to retire and then do this from wherever we are in the world. We want to slow travel, kind of move around the world. And since we're doing it from 4,000 miles away now, what's the difference between here and Thailand or Australia, right? Just time zones.
Right.
So yeah. And you have the same systems and processes in place, even if you're out of state, or if you should have the same processes in place if you're 4 miles down the road versus 4,000. So.
Right. And being that far away too, like when you're, because obviously you have to have like a team, like you talk about systems and processes, and part of that is having a team of people, like boots on the ground type people, property managers, I'm sure brokers, whoever
Yeah.
else, title people. If you need one, let me know. So when you're investing your time and money in these people, and it's, you're doing all your stuff virtually, did you have to lean on maybe other people that you knew and trusted in the real estate world to try to like help you find a team? Or was it like, hey, let's put on a job on Indeed and hopefully we roll the dice on some good people? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, no, that's a great point, Mike. And so we did have to lean on people that we knew, like, and trusted. And one of those persons was an academy classmate of mine. So we've known each other for like, I guess, 15, 16 years now. And I went through a lot with him. And so I knew him, I liked him, and I trusted him. And like, he was in a market that we were very interested in. And so he was also interested in getting multifamily. He's full-time real estate. So we know he had the time to focus on it. And, after we started chatting, we realized, okay, we have similar goals. And so that's when we're like, okay, well, Suzy and I can do most everything from over here. The thing that we can't do is, walk the asset, take the pictures that we want, scratch and sniff it. So, we put together the process, like I was mentioning, the process is like, okay, walk this building, take these pictures, look at this, write down these numbers, serial numbers, and things like that on like HVAC systems or whatever, right? So we had put all that together based on like the knowledge that we can gather. Now he can go out and do it, right? And then he can talk to us live, and then or take pictures and other things like that. So yeah, that was our biggest piece, Mike, was that. But then the other piece was we wanted to make sure that we had a property management company that aligned with our core values. That's huge. We will never move to another market now until we find a property management company that we know, like, and trust, and aligns with our values in that market before we even start looking at deals. Because one thing that we do with our property management company is like, we underwrite deals, we build a business plan, and then before we even submit an LOI, we sit down with our property management company and review it and say, okay, is this something that makes sense? And they're not yes men or women. They create dialogue with us. Well, we can do this, we can't do that. They're not just there like, yes, we can do yes, 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 right? Like, if you get a bunch of yeses from a property management company, that should be a red flag, and you should, make sure that they're asking deeper questions or at least providing some kind of dialogue.
Right. Of course. Yeah. I mean, I feel like that's the most important thing, because I mean, I do know people here that I've had on the show that invest in real estate, and they've, like you, have never seen them. They've never scratched and sniffed. And they're like, I have a system and process on how to put a team together. Doesn't matter where in the country it is. I know that I can get a team together that's going to do what I needed to do, which to me, and listen, I'm not a real estate investor myself. Maybe one day, we'll see. But to me, that would be like the most nerve-wracking thing ever, to just be like, here's money here, and I'll send it overseas or across the country or whatever it is. And then you have to have a lot of, you said, know, like, and trust. And that's a thing that people say all the time. And it could be overused, but it's so true. Yeah. Like, you need to have those people in place. So talk to me more about like how this process works. Are these syndication deals? Are you guys investing in them on your own? Talk to me about that.
No, we saved for a really long time, and then we were able to put down a 25% down payment on a multi-million-dollar building.
Boom.
No, I'm kidding. I wish one day. But no, they're all syndications. So, we had, investors on both the 88 unit and the 100 unit. And yeah, we learned a lot for raising money on the first one. And then what we learned, we've created systems and processes, of course, to make the next one even smoother. And that was really smooth, and really enjoyed that. So
yeah,
the first one. Yeah.
Right. Awesome. So the Adventurous Real Estate Investors, that's like the group, right? And that's, like where people go. Like, so how do you, are you marketing to people that are living abroad or want to have a similar lifestyle than you? Because I mean, today, the episode that posted today, at the time of this recording, it's June 15th. So I had the net worth nurse on, and she is a multifamily syndicator, and she markets mostly to healthcare professionals. So are you marketing, just because you can kind of build a community like that, are you marketing a lot to investors that are looking to live a similar lifestyle than you?
So we're actually marketing to people who want to make an impact in their world or in other people's world while leveraging real estate investing. So like, impact means so many things to so many people that's like just what we want to do. We want to help others like create that impact. The adventurous real estate investors part is just who we are. So yes, we want to connect with other people who see themselves as adventurous, but not everybody does. And that's totally okay. But the whole thing was that because we're so far away, we just wanted to be able to show people like, we are not another website with apartment buildings, like this is who we are. This is what we like to do. And this is who you'll be like in working with until you decide not to anymore. And so that's really where the life came from it. But we are really big on impact, and we've met so many amazing people who are just making like huge impacts, whether that be like with an acquisition fee, somebody's like building an orphanage in Belize, or somebody can retire from the military after 20 years and their family no longer has to move every 2 to 3 years for a new duty station. And so, their kids now have like a home base. Like impact just reaches deep down to your core. And I truly, truly believe that everybody was born to make an impact. So actually, if we can help people figure out that this is a way that they can like pursue their passion and pursue their impacts, then that is what we want to do. And that's what we're going for.
How does someone, and this might be an impossible question to answer, but I'm going to ask it anyway. How does someone know what the impact they want to have is? Like what's the impact that you guys want to have? And maybe that could help somebody realize like, ooh, hey, that sounds like something interesting.
Yeah, that's a great question. So with Michael, used to be a professor, will be a professor again. And since I've been a coach and a mentor, we have always had a love for education. But because we want to continue to travel and explore this beautiful world, we had to sit down, not just one time. It took multiple times, to like think about it, visualize it, write it out again. And we just wanted to continue to educate, but outside of a traditional classroom. We're like, okay, how do we do that? How do we leverage real estate investing in order to do that? And actually our big thing is that when Michael can retire, that means we no longer, have a home base. So we want to be able to travel the world and actually live in different communities. And in those communities that need it the most or would benefit from it the most, we actually want to be able to build schools in those communities. And that's how the education piece can live on through us. We're not like in this space where we're just, like I said, teaching from a classroom. We want to help people excel in different ways, but with an education piece attached to it.
Right. That's fantastic. Amazing answer. I didn't know if that was going to be an answer that you could have answered or a question that you could have answered, but amazing. I mean, this has been so great so far. When we're talking about the real estate investing, a lot of the people that listen to the show are between the ages of 25 and 35. So I'm 30. So a lot of the people that listen to the show are in my age bracket, right?
Yeah.
So either they're working a 9 to 5 and they're investing in real estate on the side, or they're interested in leaving the 9 to 5 to start investing in real estate, or whatever, new to the real estate industry. It doesn't matter. They're young professionals in some capacity. When 2020 happened, you guys saw an opportunity by, just reading books and educating yourselves. But maybe people missed that early boat to just try to like jump into it then. So maybe like, what would be some words of advice for people that are in that age range that are looking to get involved in real estate in whatever capacity it could be? Like, what were some things you'd say would be some things they need to do early on?
Do you want me to go?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So I have like two things. One, because they're interested in real estate investing, I just want the small reminder that like we all have bills to pay. So just find an asset that pays for those bills, right? But in order to do that, like for me, the biggest thing is education so that you can actually figure out like what branch you want to go off of, right? So with that is the books, with the podcast. I mean, you can find stuff on YouTube, depending on what type of medium you like to learn from, but find the preference that you love and then just absorb that information until you're confident enough to start to join meetups. Because then once you go to meetups and have the conversations with people, you're not like nervous or embarrassed because you have no idea what's going on. You can actually contribute to it because you're like, oh, well, I've listened to 30 podcasts on this. I know what they're kind of talking about. And you just become more engaged that way.
Right.
And then I also would recommend, once you discover like which type of real estate you want to invest in, like find some key players in that specific field and then follow everything that they do. Like a lot of people say like go inch deep and a mile wide, but really want to go like an inch wide and a mile deep or whatever. You want on like one specific person or a handful of people and really like mimic what they're doing and like reading everything that they're doing. And then it's basically just, I would say copying because it's not plagiarism or anything like that, but like literally copying what they're doing. Because obviously whatever they're doing is very successful for them.
Right.
And yeah.
Yeah, because we don't have to reinvent the wheel. We just have to figure out how to explain it to our audience in a different way.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be someone that you know personally, right? I mean, you can just educate yourself on what, pick a real estate investor, like what they're doing, how they do it. It doesn't have to be somebody that like a mentorship side. It's just an education side to kind of like learn, I'm going to invest in real estate like, whoever, and then just roll with it.
Great.
Right.
Cardone or something. I don't know.
There's
a name out there. Yeah.
Right. There's a name. Yeah. So talk to me more about the meetups and how important that community is, because that's, to me, multifamily syndication, that is, if you don't have a good community, it's just not going to work for you. And especially like if you're trying to, be the GP on a deal or whatever it is. So talk to me about, how much time you guys spent once you got yourselves educated. How much time did you spend to kind of get yourself into a position where you felt like you could actually start moving forward on that first deal with the community that you had built up?
Oh man. So I think, once we started education and then we found these networking events, and then we started, calling and talking to as many people as possible. We heard time and time again, especially when we be a syndicator, like you need to start raising money yesterday. And so we kept hearing that. And we also heard along the way that if doing syndication on your first raise, you can expect about 10% of your investor list to actually invest with you. So just put that in perspective. If you're trying to raise $500,000, you need at least 10 investors who are going to invest 50,000. Therefore, your list needs to be 100 people, right? And so, and actually it turned out to be our list, 10% of our list actually invested in our first deal. So it's very shocking. And so they say that for a reason, right? And so like, yeah, you talk to all these people, but most people are going to sit on the sidelines and watch. So once we got to that number we thought we needed to be at, that's when we felt comfortable. And also through networking as well, we found our mentor. And he was just an organic mentor that we met. It was just an introduction. And I kept up with him. He was actually investing in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And so he was in a market that we were interested in. And it was also in specific sub-markets that I was interested in investing in. And so I just kept providing value to him however I could and just like chatting with him. And then he knew, week after week that I kept chatting with him, like, hey, this guy's pretty serious. Like he's relentless, like not giving up, like still comes back every week and not just like excited about it once and then it kind of trails off. And so he saw that and was like, hey, let's meet once a week. And so we started meeting once a week for at least, for an hour or two, maybe 3 hours sometimes, and just chatting about real estate, underwriting, everything you need in order to successfully take down a syndication. At that point, him looking over our underwriting and him being like our guide through our first syndication, that is when we felt comfortable like closing on our first deal, because like his confidence, the confidence that he had gave us confidence, and then we could portray that confidence or exude that confidence on our investors, right? We're normally, if it was just us taking out a deal, I felt like we would be like, oh yeah, we think these are the numbers, instead of like them actually being the numbers, if that makes sense. So
right, yeah. So in that answer, you mentioned something about providing value, and I think that is one of the things when people are new or trying to get themselves involved in real estate because they want a higher cash flow or they want to have a passive income stream or whatever it is. A lot of those people, especially the people that listen to this show when they're young, maybe they don't have, I've had people on the show that want, $25,000, $50,000 to get involved in a real estate, investment or syndication or whatever it is. I don't have that. And if you're 25 years old and you just have 50K in the bank sitting there and you want to go invest in multifamily real estate, God bless you. But talk to me about other ways that you can provide value to syndicators or real estate investors to at least get your foot in the door and maybe try to get you started on that process to your first deal.
Yeah, so the way I kind of provided value, and it just came, I was just trying to be nice, and I didn't realize, like, now thinking back, I was like actually providing value, right? Like, he had a website, and I looked at his website because I was just trying to learn more about him. And then there was like one area of his website where he wanted to build like an education platform. And I was like, oh, like my background in education, as we mentioned earlier, I've built courses from the ground up, and I know. So I asked him about it. I was like, hey, like, what are you doing with that? He's like, oh, I want to build like an education course, for investors or potential active syndicators as well. And I was like, oh, that's really cool. Like, here's all of my course material, like how I build a course that's just generic, like how I build a course from step 1 through, the final exam or something like that. So I provided all of those PDFs that I usually work off of and all the information as I could. And I was like, here's this, like, let's sit down and chat. I'll be more than happy to like walk you through each thing. And so, like, looking back, that's how I provided value to him. I didn't like go searching for it, but it was something that naturally came to me, like, hey, I can see that he's struggling in this area. I want to help him out. Right. So.
Right. Yeah, no, that's fantastic. I mean, that's just a great way. And it just seems like that's a easier way to at least, like, even, I feel like even if it's something where they give you the scraps that are left over at the end of a deal, you take it because at least it gets you started on that process of moving forward in real estate investing. So, right. You guys have guested on a lot of podcasts, including this one, obviously. But you've also
we're on a podcast right now.
No. But you've also started your own podcast. So why go from the guesting side into the, dirty world of podcast hosting, like I'm in right now, and start your own show? Was that part of the building a brand, building the community side of it?
Yeah, so it was definitely both. So when we were having a lot of these one-on-ones and meeting people at meetups, like, some of their stories just touched us so deep that, like, when we knew that we were going to start to focus on return on impact, we were like, whoa, like, we can turn this into a podcast, like having people on who are leveraging real estate investing to make impacts in their world. And that was really why we wanted to do it, because it's so amazing. For one, actually, now I'm just going to get excited. Like, you meet so many cool people,
That's
right?
True. Yeah, we do.
And then, like, yes, although like my mom and Michael's mom listen to our podcast, there are other people who listen to the podcast who haven't thought about some of like the impacts that they're making, or have never really understood maybe like why we are in real estate investing. It's like, hey, these are the things that can be done, and it's not that far out of your reach. It's not that far out of anyone's reach actually. And that's why we wanted to make it, just so that, like I said, people could start to hear other people's stories about what they're doing about impact, and then hopefully create their own. But now the podcast is just fun. It's like, it's really, I'd rather just be a podcast guest and a podcast host. And I wish that money, syndications would close just being on podcasts, because that would be super awesome. But it's just fun. And so many people learn from them in a different way. And like, you can do it when you're washing dishes and not be the guest or the host, but you can listen like while you're washing dishes or walking your dog or just laying in bed. Like, my mind is just blown. And really, the world is going virtual. So podcasting is not going away whatsoever, and so it works for us, right. Especially with us not having a TV. It's like, this is the entertainment that we get, and it's fun.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And so, fun stat for you. You said podcasting is not going away. Podcasting is about 17 or 18 years old. Television, you mentioned TV also. At this point in television's lifespan, the color TV still had not come out yet. So it's like one of those things where you start to think about it in like the grand scheme of things. And while people just say like, oh, podcasting, it's so oversaturated and there's so many podcasts and whatever, like it's not even scratched the surface of its, potential down the road. And I 100% agree with you. Like, the world is going virtual, and, you got to take your little piece of the piece of the pie now and then try to go from there. So one of the other things that you mentioned in there that I think is awesome and was one thing that really started to shift this format of the show around was at the beginning, we would talk a lot about like real estate specific topics. So 1031 exchanges, multifamily syndication, development projects, New Jersey residential market. And then eventually we started doing, because I would have panels on those episodes. And as you can imagine, trying to get a panel on an episode was like herding cats. It just like wasn't, like it was impossible. And then we started doing one-on-ones. And I think that we connected more with audiences beyond just the educational side of it, talking about multifamily syndications or what you guys have going on, but you get to hear people's stories. And I think that that's really what starts to connect the audience with your guests. So as I get to know you, they also get to know you over the course of this hour-long, whatever episode. So I think it's great. I'm really pumped about it. What's the name of the show? Is Adventurous Real Estate Investors, correct?
That's the name of our company, but the name of the show is The Adventures of a Real Estate Investor.
The Adventures of a Real Estate Investor. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. I was making sure I was said it the right. Yeah. The right words. And it was like, all of a sudden I got tongue tied. I'm a professional. All right. If people are listening to this and they say, hey, Michael and Suzy, I'm really vibing with what they got going on, and I want to get involved with what they have going on, how do they start that process?
Yeah, so the best way to do that is go to Adventurous, REI.com/info. And there you can read more about return on impact. You can find our podcast there. You'll find our YouTube channel, which launched July 1st. And you'll find all of our other social links on there as well. And so and then also on the website, you'll be able to find if you're interested in investing, there's also that information as well. But you learn about us and connect with us.
Awesome. And then that just kind of gets the process rolling. They do like probably an intro call, a Zoom, most likely, do all that kinds of things. I think that's awesome. So before we get into our closing segment, because we are coming up close to the end of this episode, unfortunately, I always like to ask people when they come on this show, especially when they're in the real estate investing world, about goals. So by the time this episode posts, you guys would have closed on another property, correct? You said that, or another 100 units? Is that what you said? So you'll be at, well, I almost knocked my water over, almost 200 units when this posts. What are some goals that you're hoping to accomplish with the real estate investing over the course of the next year?
Yeah, so our goals for the next, I can go through this year, is that we want to close on 2 more after this one. Obviously, only if the numbers work, but that is our goal through the end of this year. Yep.
Boom. Love it. All right. Awesome. What about the podcast? Do you have goals for the podcast? Do you want to like hit any milestones with that? Or is that just something that it's just kind of like you're going to play with it and see how it goes?
So the podcast will live on. I don't have a specific goal for our podcast, but as a guest, our goal is to be on 100 podcasts this year.
Oh, one. Here's one.
There we go. 99 more.
99 more to go.
When we launched our podcast, I'll just briefly say, like, we did a lot of marketing beforehand, and we're still continuing to do a lot of marketing. And we're trying to hit new noteworthy. So I think you have like 8 weeks, or I don't know, the whole algorithm for iTunes is very cryptic, but we rolled out a bunch of episodes, and we're trying to hit as many downloads as possible right now. I think we're doing really well. So
good. Yeah. Well, I see on LinkedIn recently, I think you guys posted that you hit 1,000 like pretty quickly, right?
Yeah. In eight days.
So, I mean, you know how long it took me to hit 1,000 downloads? It took me like months. I mean, really? It took forever. And so good for you. I mean, I went into it with nothing. I mean, I didn't guest on shows. I had no plan. I was a mess when I first started, but we've really picked it up over the last couple months. But so that's awesome. I think that's great. Also, Apple is just giving everybody all kinds of problems right now. Like, kicked off a bunch of my episodes. I went from having 70 something on there to 2. Now, all of a sudden I'm on there twice. Like, there's 2 different morning spotlights with the same episodes and everything. One has reviews, one didn't. So Apple's, I mean, they're lagging behind a little bit when you look at.
We had the same issues. We had double. Yeah.
We had 3
at one point.
3.
Yeah. Like, oh wow, God. 3 podcasts is too many. Thank you.
Yeah, exactly. 1 is a lot, and 2 more is just forget it. But all right, great. So we're going to move the show into our closing segment, which we call Under the Spotlight. So we've talked for, I don't know, 50 minutes, 45, 50 minutes, somewhere around there. And it's been amazing. We've covered a lot of stuff, both of your careers, the impact stuff, the real estate investing, the podcast, goals. The Spotlighters have been listening to us talk for that long. What is one thing that you want the Spotlighters to walk away from this episode with? So, Suzy, we're going to put you under the spotlight first. So take it away.
No, mine is simple. You were born to make an impact. So figure out what that impact is, because that is how you will rock your world and others.
Amazing. That was fantastic. Michael, you are now under the spotlight.
Woo. All right. See, I don't know if I could beat that one, but I'll try. Just show up every single day. That's all you have to do. Show up, make yourself 1% better, do one more thing each day, and it will compound, and then eventually you'll hit that hockey stick growth. Stick with it, show up, have tenacity, and you'll make it. Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah. I think the 1% better every day thing, that's like the Japanese Kaizen, right? Kaizen. Do you know about that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Supply chain. I have to.
Yeah, right. Oh, that's true. Yeah. I remember that from baseball. I remember like our coach saying, be like, oh, Kaizen, it's a Japanese 1% better. If you then 100 days, you're 100% better. And I was like, oh,
I don't know why I've never heard this. So this is my first time hearing this.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, dude, no problem. And we do talk a lot about just showing up on this show. So both of those were tremendous, and the power of showing up. So both of those answers were tremendous. So let's hit the Spotlighters with the links one more time before we let them go. So give me the link again.
So just go to Adventurous, rei.com/info. You can learn all about us.
All about you. I've had it open pretty much the entire time on the other screen over here. So for everybody listening, I will put their links in the show notes. I will also put my links. If for whatever reason you want to go through me to get to Michael and Suzy, that would be fine. I don't know why you would want to, but you can. TheMorningSpotlight.com and TheMorningSpotlight@gmail.com are the website and email address respectively. Michael, Suzy, thank you so much for coming on with us today. This was amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. It was so much fun, Mike. I really appreciate it. We had a blast. So, yeah.
Awesome. And the Spotlighters, thank you for listening, and we will catch you next time.